A man brings a dead alien creature home from a crashed UFO. A frozen alien body is found in the Siberian snow. A humanoid creature is found lurking in a man's backyard, and more. These are mysterious beings not from Earth, caught on camera. In October 1996, a man named Jonathan Reed, who described himself as a psychologist, was out walking with his golden retriever in Seattle, Washington. He was heading toward a wooded area near the edge of town when things took a weird turn. His dog suddenly reacted to something in the trees and ran straight into the forest. Reed followed it in. He said he reached a clearing, and that's when he saw his dog barking and attacking something standing there, a small, humanoid figure about the size of a 12-year-old child. According to Reed, it was wearing a tight, seamless black suit and had a strange, unstable, quote, vibrating look to its movement. Reed claimed the figure suddenly attacked his dog, tearing it apart. After his dog was dead, it turned to white ash, and that's when the creature turned toward him. Reed grabbed a large stick and struck it in the head with full force. The figure went down and stopped moving. Right after that, Reed reported hearing a low humming sound nearby. He followed it deeper into the woods and came across a black object hovering just above the ground. He had a small camera with him and managed to capture it. After approaching the object, the humming stopped and everything went silent. Reed then returned to where the creature had been. He decided to take the body with him. He wrapped it and brought it back to his home, placing it in the freezer. The next day, he filmed the creature inside his house. He was operating on it. Footage which has since become infamous in UFO and alien forums, by the way. Shortly after the incident, though, Reed said he noticed these white vans outside his home with people watching him. And then, according to him, he came home one day to find his house had been searched and the alien creature gone. He later said that he was followed, threatened, and even shot at, which pushed him into staying silent for years. When he finally went public, he appeared on UFO radio shows and conferences and released parts of his story along with the footage and images. Now, to say this account is far-fetched would obviously be an understatement. People were highly skeptical, and some have pointed out things that didn't quite line up in his story, and it's convenient that there was never any physical evidence for anyone to properly test, but Reed never backed down. He's always stuck with his story. Back in April 2011, a video from Russia suddenly started spreading across the internet after it appeared to show the body of a dead extraterrestrial lying in the snow. The footage was filmed by two men who claimed they'd stumbled on the thing while walking through a wooded area. Laying near a tree stump was what looked like a small humanoid body. It had an oversized head, thin limbs, dark eyes, and part of one leg appeared to be missing. One of the men said, "We found him around 2 hours ago. Must have been lying here for days." According to the story that circulated with the footage, a dog had supposedly led them to the body. Interestingly, there had also been reports in the area at the time of unusual objects in the sky. Michael Cohen of All News Web wrote that people had witnessed a UFO crash that was, quote, deliberately kept from public view. He also asked the question, is the alien seen in this video a survivor of that crash who managed to leave the area only to die as a result of Russia's harsh conditions? Well, within days, millions of people had watched the video. Some were convinced that they were looking at genuine evidence of an alien being. Others said it was just a bunch of BS. The official story in the years since is that this was a hoax, but is it possible they were just trying to cover it up? What do you think? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. On December 1st, 1987, a retired police officer using the name Philip Spencer went out for a morning walk across Ilkley Moor in West Yorkshire, England. He had a camera with him and a compass in his pocket in case the fog rolled in, which apparently wasn't unusual for the area. While crossing the moor, Spencer said he noticed something ahead on the trail. First, it just looked like a small figure standing there. As he got closer, he described it as about 4 feet tall, dark green in color with an oversized head and long, thin arms. The creature lifted its arm in a gesture that he took as a warning to stay back, but instead of turning away, he pulled out his camera and took a photo. That image is the centerpiece of everything that followed, a blurry figure in the distance standing in the open moorland fog. Spencer said the creature then ran off and he chased after it. Spencer claimed that as he lost sight of the figure, he suddenly saw a craft rise up from the moor. He said it was whitish, made of two saucer-like sections that were joined together, one stacked on top of the other. He also reported this loud humming sound as it lifted into the sky and disappeared. After the encounter, he said he ended up walking in a different direction than he planned and eventually realized that something was off with the timing. He believed that he'd lost around 2 hours. Even his compass, which he brought specifically for navigation, was pointing the wrong way. Well, not long after, he reached out to UFO researchers Jenny Randles and Peter Ho, and the photograph started circulating. Experts were brought in to examine it. A wildlife photographer who looked at the image said it didn't match any known animal. Kodak lab staff reportedly said they found no evidence of tampering. At the same time, other experts like U.S. Navy optics specialist Bruce Maccabee said the image was just too grainy to make any firm conclusions. And then there's the part that makes the case even more strange. Spencer later agreed to undergo regressive hypnotherapy on March 16th, 1988. Under hypnosis, his account changed. Instead of just seeing the creature, he now described being paralyzed, lifted, and taken into a craft, where he said a voice told him to stay calm. Inside, he claimed he saw green beings performing medical procedures, including inserting objects into his nose and mouth. After these supposed memories flooded back, he reinterpreted the whole encounter. Maybe the creature hadn't been warning him to stay back. Maybe he was actually waving goodbye to him after he was returned to the moor. Now, I think with the case of Mothman, it makes sense to start at the beginning. So this photograph of the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio was taken way back in December of 1967. Just days later, the bridge would collapse and 46 people would die in the accident. But do you notice the dark shape over the bridge? That's not damage to the photo. The photographer noticed this thing flying overhead at the time. Multiple witnesses did. Whatever it was didn't look like a bird, at least not a normal-sized bird. See, in and around this time, people have been spotting a large, winged creature perching on this bridge, and there were also multiple accounts from people claiming to have come face-to-face with this creature swooping down from the sky or glaring at them in the middle of the road at night. They described it as a large creature with wings, long legs, and bright red eyes. Sort of half man, half moth type thing. It became known as the Mothman. Sightings have petered out since this cluster of reports at the time, but you still get reports and even photos and footage today that look a lot like the descriptions of the creature, mostly in Ohio and West Virginia, but not exclusively. Take this next case, for example. This happened in Phoenix back in March of 2020. The uploader said that they noticed this thing while sitting in their backyard, a black object moving slowly from northeast to southwest about a mile high. He immediately clocked how strange the shape was. It clearly wasn't a plane, but it didn't look like a bird either. It was this humanoid-looking figure with wings. The uploader's wife commented that it looked like a giant bumblebee. They started recording the thing, and once zoomed in on it, they noticed it looked like it was spinning as it was moving. It was also completely silent. Now, is there something actually in the sky here, or is this a hoax? Well, what's also interesting about this case, and you don't get this often with videos like this, there were actually multiple witnesses, so we also have footage captured by someone else. Uploaded to YouTube by Bailey18 on March 24th, 2020, she posted the link in the comments of a Reddit page sharing the previous video that we just showed. She said her son had spotted this thing before he started recording. So what on earth is it? A Mothman type creature? A UAP? Something more ordinary? Let us know what you think down in the comments. On the 20th of November 2016, a man in Mason County, West Virginia, was driving along the highway at night when he spotted something flying overhead. Being that it was a quiet night, he casually pulled over to see if he could get a better look. We stepped out of the car and saw this large winged creature gliding around in circles overhead. He pulled out his phone, snapped some images which would become some of the most well-known pieces of supposed Mothman evidence. The photographer sent the pictures to a local news station, WCHS. The station aired the pictures in a November 21, 2016 report, and they are pretty eye-catching images. They're grainy, sure, but the thing does look Mothmanish to me. What do you think, though? Are these pictures genuine? Are we looking at a bat or a bird with something in its mouth? Or are these photos just outright hoaxes? Share your thoughts down below. Now that unbelievable footage was reportedly captured back in 2000 by an amateur outdoorsman. He spent a lot of his free time hiking through the remote wilderness and filming whatever caught his eye along the way. According to the story behind the video, it was recorded in September of 2000 near a logging trail. The hiker had wandered off the main trail that afternoon, hoping to get a better view over a section of dense forest he hadn't explored before. He had his camcorder with him as usual and had been filming different parts of the hike throughout the day. Before hitting record on this particular clip, he said he noticed movement further back in the trees. His first thought was probably a black bear, so he stayed where he was and kept watching without getting any closer. But then something else about the thing caught his attention. Glowing red specks. Were those its eyes? Well, curious, he started recording, and moments later, the thing unfurled a pair of wings and took flight. A clearly Mothman-looking creature. Around 2011, a YouTube channel called Ivan0135 uploaded a set of short clips with no explanation attached. The videos show this gray humanoid figure with a big head and dark eyes, your classic gray. In one clip, it's sitting at a table in what looks like some kind of control room. In another, it's standing and slowly moving around, mostly small head turns and slight shifts in its posture. Everything is black and white and really grainy, like old tape or degraded footage. No one's ever been able to confirm where the videos came from or who actually made them. There's also been a lot of technical breakdown, looking at the grain, the noise, and compression patterns in the footage, and some argue that the grain looks like real camera noise rather than something added on top. Now, real or not, it is pretty eerie stuff, but what do you think? Back in 2022, a man named Harry Hayes was out jogging in Sydney, Australia, after days of heavy rain had flooded parts of the street. He spotted something strange sitting on the road. It was small, fleshy looking. It looked like some kind of embryo. He pulled out his phone and started filming it while trying to figure out what he was looking at. He thought it looked like some kind of embryo, but also joked that with all the crazy stuff going on at the time, the wars, the global pandemic, he wouldn't be surprised if it was some sort of mutated creature or alien. He uploaded the clip to Instagram, where it quickly started spreading and pulling in all kinds of theories. Some people thought it could be a shark embryo washed up during the flooding. Others suggested a mutated tadpole, and some also went straight to the alien angle. Even people with biology backgrounds weren't so sure what it was though. Zoologist Elisa shared the image and wrote, "Hey world, what is this thing? I thought possible glider, possum embryo, but I have no context or scale and none of my peers can agree. What is this? Hashtag mystery blob." Now, this is one of the most infamous, supposedly real alien creature videos on the internet. It was recorded in Denver, Colorado by a man named Stan Romanek in 2003. He said he started noticing something outside his home at night. Someone or something was coming up to the window and looking in. Thinking it might be someone messing around or possible intruder, he set up a camera aimed at the window to catch it. What he ended up capturing was this pale, humanoid-looking figure peering into his window. It rises into view, lingers there for a moment, then drops out of sight. It comes back into frame a couple times. The video was later shown publicly in 2008 at an event organized by UFO researcher Jeff Peckman, where it was presented as possible evidence. And after that, it started spreading online and getting picked apart frame by frame. Romanek has insisted the footage is real, and just one incident that he managed to capture on camera amongst a whole bunch of odd experiences that he had around his home. Out in Dubina, a rural stretch of Fayette County, Texas, Michael Demmel has been running trail cameras on his property for years. They're set up all over the place to catch wildlife moving through at night. Coyotes, bobcats, raccoons, that kind of thing. He checks them every day, and after 10 years of doing it, he knows what normal looks like on those images. Well, one night a photo came through that kind of freaked him out. At first, Michael said he thought it might be a monkey. Already insane to see in the wild in Texas. The picture is blurry, but there is something definitely crouching there, about the size of a medium dog. But the shape is weird. It's super spindly, doesn't appear to have fur either. He showed the image around to his friends, and once it started spreading, people started throwing out ideas. Some said chupacabra, alien, or skinwalker. Michael said, "In the 10 years I've been reviewing my cameras, I've never encountered anything like it." Uploaded back in 2011 to a YouTube channel called Hola Bible, this clip comes from a guy in Oregon who says he started hearing strange noises coming from the forest behind his home. He points out that he's out in a pretty isolated spot, about 6 miles from the nearest city, so hearing stuff moving around there at night isn't exactly normal. Grabs a night vision camera and heads out to check it. First, it's just dark woods and brush, but as he moves deeper in, he eventually spots whatever's making the sound. Crouched down in the vegetation is this pale, hairless-looking figure. It doesn't really move like an animal you'd expect to see out there, and and the shape of it is hard to place from the footage. He zooms in to get a closer look, trying to figure out what he's actually looking at. The camera shakes a bit as he focuses on it. The figure is still there in the brush, low to the ground, and then reacts. Scary stuff. What is it though? An alien creature, a rake, a naked man with glowing eyes, a hoax? Share your thoughts down below. Now we head to Sanibel, Florida on October 6th, 2013, where a woman named Patricia and her fiance Dave were out in the water fishing when they saw whatever on earth that thing was I just showed you. According to them, the creature was at least 20 feet long, moving at serious speed, and at one point it broke the surface and twisted around on itself in this bizarre coiling motion, almost like it was wrapping around something, before diving back down and disappearing. The movement starts on the left side of the frame, but then way off in the distance, something else explodes out of the water entirely. So now you've got a new question on your hands. Are we looking at two separate creatures here? Or is this one single animal that's either really big or covered an insane amount of distance in almost no time at all? Don't know. Way back in 1967, off the coast of British Columbia near the main islands, a regularly scheduled ferry ride turned into something the passengers would be talking about for the rest of their lives. The ferry was full of tourists. People started pointing at the shoreline. Sitting right there on the beach was what appeared to be a blonde-haired, mermaid-like creature, casually eating a fish. One witness, and I love that this detail made it into the official accounts, she actually described the creature as attractive with dimples. A photo was taken of the creature, you can see it here, showing what appears to be a woman with long blonde hair in the lower half of a porpoise. Later that same week, another sighting was reported in the same area. By this point, though, the story was attracting a lot of attention, and with attention came skepticism. People began writing the whole thing off as a hoax, but not everyone was ready to just dismiss it outright. Charles White, the owner of something called Undersea Gardens, which was essentially a ship converted into an underwater aquarium, was so convinced the mermaid was real that he offered a $25,000 reward for her capture. He even said he'd provide room and board for the mermaid once she was found. Fortunately, the sightings eventually petered out. The reward went unclaimed. This is genuinely one of the creepiest pieces of footage on the entire list. It's a supposedly leaked video from the UK Coast Guard. The crew had been out on the water searching for a man who'd gone overboard when something came up from below the surface that was very clearly not the man they were looking for. A humanoid figure breaches the water in a way that no human body moves, before slipping back beneath the surface and apparently circling the vessel, because you could see the sailor on deck reacting, moving quickly to the other side of the boat, trying to keep eyes on whatever this thing is. Notice the creepy glowing eyes on this thing too. Definitely not one of the hot mermaids that we usually imagine. And that's what they look like. Well, and gosh darn it, those old-timey sailors, they must have been plastered blind to want to get into the water with one of them. Finally, we've got the granddaddy of all the mermaids are real cases. The one that arguably started the whole modern obsession with the idea. Cast your mind back to 1842 in New York City, where a showman named P.T. Barnum put something on display at his American Museum that had people lining up around the block. He called it the Fiji Mermaid. Barnum himself described the thing as an ugly, dried-up, blackened little specimen that looked like it had died in tremendous agony. Did that description put people off? Apparently not. It made them more curious. What they got when they walked in was a shriveled little corpse, a bony humanoid torso fused to a fishtail. For a while, a genuinely surprising number of people believed they were standing face to face with the remains of an actual mermaid. The truth, when it eventually came out, was obviously a letdown, but maybe even more fascinating than the myth. Looking back, the thing had been stitched together by Japanese fishermen. Top half of a monkey sewn onto the lower half of a fish. That was the big mystery. But here's the part that really says something about human nature. Even after Barnum openly admitted it was fake, the crowds kept coming because people didn't really come to see a mermaid. They came because they wanted to believe that one was possible, even for just a moment. In a very real way, this grotesque little fake is responsible for shaping what a lot of us picture when we hear the words mermaid skeleton. Because yeah, we hear that all the time, right? I do, doing this job. This next clip was shared on TikTok by a 47-year-old Arkansas man named Robert. He was walking through the woods one night with his dog Ollie, and when it started acting strange, barking at something in the bushes. Robert tried to figure out what his dog was so worked up about. He looked around, trying to spot whatever might be lurking nearby, and then he captured this.
What the hell is that?
The strange screeching noise is unsettling enough on its own, but look at those glowing red eyes. Some commenters believe there was something stranger than a wolf lurking in those bushes, possibly even the Mothman, especially given the bright red eyes. Interestingly, Arkansas does have some Mothman-like sightings. The state doesn't have one famous case that everyone knows about, but it does have a handful of creepy reports. One of the better-known reports comes from northern Arkansas in 2021. A witness claimed they were outside at night when they noticed what they described as a giant Batman-like figure gliding overhead. According to the account, it had a distinctly human shape with enormous wings extending from its back. It wasn't flapping like a bird. Instead, it seemed to glide effortlessly through the air before disappearing into the darkness. And then there are the stories from central Arkansas. One paranormal investigation reportedly took a frightening turn when members of a ghost hunting group claimed that a massive winged creature suddenly flew toward them before landing in a nearby tree. They described it as dark, unnaturally large, and unlike any owl or hawk that they'd ever seen. Another strange account came from the Little Rock area, where a woman claimed that she repeatedly encountered this enormous winged humanoid perched on rooftops and flying overhead at night. She described wings so wide they seemed to stretch across the roofs of the houses. Well, red eyes, wings, gliding instead of flapping. This looks like a Mothman caught on camera if I've ever seen one. This footage was said to have been captured just outside Marietta, Ohio, a quiet town near the Ohio River. It was late at night when the cameraman noticed something strange moving above the trees. At first he thought it was a large bird, but as it drifted closer, it looked more bat-like. But it was a very big bat with glowing reddish eyes, and it didn't make a sound. Well, yeah, I didn't like that thing. This one looks more like your classic demonic type entity rather than strictly a Mothman type creature. But given we don't really know what Mothman is, aside from it being a large winged monster, I thought I'd include this clip. Nobody seems to know where the original upload comes from. This footage has been reposted countless times, but it's easy to see why. This is a freaky looking video, and even with this extended close-up view of the thing, it never looks unrealistic to me. Could be someone in a suit, for sure, but it looks convincing. I mean, I could believe this was a real animal. Certainly doesn't look like AI, especially because the video came out before AI videos started just clogging up the internet. The thing I hate most about this thing are its hands. The fingers, or I guess claws, are so long and freaky looking. Imagine those things clawing at your face. And finally, we have another mysterious clip straight out of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where a security camera captured what can only be described as a large winged creature swooping past the frame. Some commenters said it could be a bug, but I don't know about that. I know bugs and insects can look larger than they are if they're right up on the lens, but this thing flies past and it just takes up too much of the frame, and I could be wrong, but there also seems to be too much bulk to it. There are tons of opinions in the comments, but the two most frequent guesses, aside from the video being fake of course, are Mothman and Batman, and I will admit, I do see the Batman resemblance. In the mid-90s, when farmers in Puerto Rico started finding their livestock dead, with strange wounds and their insides sucked out, stories of a hairless, red-eyed creature started to spread. El Chupacabra, English translation, goat sucker. From there, it spread into Mexico, the southern US, and beyond. From a Texas police dashcam, drone footage over Bolivia, trail cameras, and more, these are 10 times a real chupacabra was caught on camera. This first video comes out of the Huila department in Colombia. On this remote stretch of road late at night in September of 2024, a traveler pulled over when he noticed something crawling on the ground ahead. At first, he just wanted to avoid running over the animal, but he pulled out his phone and started recording when he realized that he had no idea what this thing actually was. When you really look closely at this animal, it doesn't look like a cat or a dog or any other four-legged animal. It doesn't even look like a normal animal with mange. Look at the shape. Looks kind of like it's squatting, and it has long back legs and shorter legs or arms in the front. What do you think this thing is? Let us know down in the comments. This is one of the most well-known pieces of supposed chupacabra footage. was filmed on August 8, 2008 by a police officer named Brendan Rydell in DeWitt County, Texas. He was on patrol when he spotted something strange running along the road. At first glance, it looks like a coyote, but the details don't quite add up. The body is mostly hairless, the ears are large and upright, and the snout is longer and narrower than you'd expect. The way it moves is also a little strange. The forelegs are noticeably shorter than the hind legs, which lines up pretty closely with how the chupacabra is typically described. After the footage got out, people started connecting it to the legend. The creature blamed for slaughtering livestock and draining their insides. This is one of the main videos that comes up whenever the conversation starts, and for good reason. It's clear footage, and you get this nice, long, unobstructed look at the thing. Now, we don't often hear about chupacabra sightings in Canada, but I wanted to include this footage because it's pretty creepy, and whatever this creature is, it does kind of resemble people's descriptions of the beast. A guy pulled his car over on a rural road somewhere in Quebec to film this moose grazing on the side of the road. Now, right away, I like this, because often with cryptid or like paranormal type videos, you do kind of question why the person starts filming in the first place, and then just happens to capture something weird on camera, but stopping to get some footage of a moose, perfectly reasonable. Now, notice that lurking in the trees behind the moose, though, is something stranger. A hairless, pale white thing crouching on what looks like a pair of long, thin arms. Oddly, the moose doesn't notice it at all. It's not distracted. Now, seeing as chupacabras are known for attacking animals, this seemed like a good pick for the list. In 2019, folks in a small neighborhood in Houston, Texas were on alert after a mystery animal was spotted lurking around the area multiple times. At least one man, Scott Black, was convinced that it wasn't a coyote. Black had spotted it several times outside his back door and managed to snap some pictures of it. An animal control expert named Claude Griffin looked at the photos and thought there might be a more grounded explanation, but he didn't just write it off as a coyote with mange. It was a little stranger than that. He actually suggested it could be a combination of several species. He mentioned something a lot of people don't usually bring up, saying that Houston has a much higher number of exotic pet owners than most people would assume. In mid-2023, farmers near Oruro, Bolivia started spotting something weird roaming their fields. One drone video caught this hunched, dark figure lurking in a crop field. Carla Flores, who first spotted it in the footage, said it looked strange, like a dog but with a hump on its back. The more she looked at it, the more she was reminded of descriptions of the elusive creature known as the chupacabra. The footage is captured from far away, but part of the reason it caught so much attention came down to timing. Farmers in the area had already been finding dead livestock drained of BLOOD. Some of them started putting up floodlights around their ranches, hoping to either scare whatever it was off or actually get a look at it. So even though this footage isn't super clear, the context certainly does add to it. And right off the bat, I'm starting with a weird one. As if mermaids caught on camera isn't weird enough already. So we don't often picture mermaids on land, let alone the jungle, but here we go. Granted, this footage was supposedly captured just a little inland on a beach, but it still makes for a very strange visual. Story goes, a man walking along a beach somewhere in the South American coast noticed something unusual near the trees just off the sand. Curious, he pulled out his phone and started filming, trying to make sense of what he was seeing before it slipped back into the brush. Tried to move in closer to see where it went, but he lost sight of it. What do you think of this video? Is this a total hoax, or do you find this one genuinely strange? Let us know down below. Coming in next, we've got something that was captured deep inside a cenote cave near Cancun. The story goes that the uploader was out on a cave diving trip when he saw something odd. We watch as he drops down into the cave, descending into this gorgeous crystal clear blue water. And as he pushes deeper into the darkness, something glides past him, right underneath one of his diving buddy's feet. And unlike some of the blurry, grainy stuff we'll get to later, this footage is surprisingly clear. It has the unmistakable silhouette of a mermaid. So the question is, are we looking at a very dedicated performer rocking an incredibly convincing tail costume, or is this something that science hasn't quite caught up with yet? I'll let you decide on that one. This next video comes from a YouTuber called Marginal Media. The backstory here is actually really interesting. He says he was out diving in the Great Barrier Reef testing out a brand new underwater camera when he accidentally filmed what might be one of the most incredible things ever captured on video. He didn't even know he'd filmed it at the time. He was too distracted fiddling around with the camera sightings. He felt something pass behind him, instinctively pointed the lens at it, and he figured, it's probably just a fish. Then he moved on. It wasn't until he went back on dry land, sitting at his laptop reviewing the footage, that he realized what he was actually looking at. It had a long, flowing tail, unmistakably fish-like from the waist down, but then you catch the glimpse of arms gracefully moving through the water before the creature disappears into the darker water. Now, marginal media is absolutely adamant this was not filmed on a movie set, not a swimming pool, not staged in any way. He says it's completely real, 100%. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, there's one thing you really can't argue with here. The footage is genuinely nice looking. So, real or not, I just like this video. This next story takes us all the way to the Mediterranean, specifically Mallorca, Spain, back in 2013. A guy was on a tour boat, everything looked gorgeous, so he pulled out his camera and started recording. That's when something caught his eye. Sitting on a mound of rocks was this creature with what appeared to be an elongated tail and a strange bluish tint to its skin. Very clearly something aquatic, but when you zoom in on the upper body, it doesn't look like a fish. The shape is human, unsettlingly human. 2 arms, a round head. Looks like a person from the torso up. Not a normal person, obviously, a fish person, but humanoid. Your first instinct might be to say it's a statue, something put there as a decoration or a tourist attraction, and admittedly, it is very still at first, but then, and this is the moment that really got people back in 2013, it moved its arm. So no, it wasn't a basic statue or a prop. Now, does that mean it's 100% unquestionably genuine? Yes. These are probably some of the most famous mermaid photographs ever taken. They were snapped by a diver named Jeff Leitcher all the way back in 1998. Leitcher claimed that these photos were nothing less than the first-hand photographic evidence that mermaids actually exist. Here's how it all went down. He was out diving about 20 minutes off Hawaii's Kona coast with a group. They found themselves swimming alongside a pod of dolphins. Normal enough. Really cool though. But then Leitcher noticed something even cooler, a woman swimming among the dolphins. And she was keeping pace with them, matching them, stroke for stroke at full dolphin speed. Before he could process what he was seeing, the woman launched herself out of the water, and that's when Leitcher got a clear look at the lower half of her body. It was a fishtail. She breached twice before vanishing back beneath the surface, leaving the whole group just floating there, completely stunned. Then, roughly an hour later, while Leitcher was photographing some fish below the surface, the same creature apparently came right up alongside him and swam past him again, and this time, he got his camera up just in time to snap a few of the now famous shots. What you just watched there comes from one of the most talked about mermaid cases of the last 2 decades. It all began in 2009 in the coastal town of Kiryat Yam, Israel. A handful of locals said they spotted something unusual near the shore around sunset. Then over the following weeks and months, the reports just kept coming in. More and more people were describing the same thing. A figure that looked like a young woman showing up at the beach regularly, almost like she had a routine, even performing what witnesses called tricks in the water. The story got big enough that the Israeli government decided to put up a $1 million reward for anyone who could provide genuine photographic proof of the creature. NBC News sent a full film crew out to Kiryat Yam to investigate. They set up cameras both above and below the waterline and ran them around the clock. One night, the crew reported seeing of the creature. NBC News sent a full film crew out to Kiryat Yam to investigate. They set up cameras both above and below the waterline and ran them around the clock. One night, the crew reported seeing what looked like a human figure slipping into the water and disappearing. They tried their best to pin down its exact location, but couldn't manage to get a definitive lock on it. The footage they captured was eventually shipped off to the Coastal Oceans Research Center in Los Angeles. The director, Michael Schacht, reviewed everything and concluded that while it was impossible to say with absolute certainty what the figure was, a mermaid remained, in his words, a viable option. Make of that what you will. Do you know what kind of animal this is? That's the same question people were asking when this footage showed up on a local news station in Pueblo, Colorado. Even the anchors seemed genuinely baffled. The creature has patchy black fur, a reddish-looking face, and these long, skinny arms. It's hunched over, picking at something on the ground, and Honestly, it doesn't look much like anything you'd expect to see wandering around someone's neighborhood. The woman who filmed it said this wasn't even the first time she'd seen the animal. Apparently it had shown up before, but she still had no clue what it was. As you'd expect, people immediately started throwing around all kinds of theories. Some thought it was just a sick animal. Others jumped straight to, you guessed it, chupacabra. Eventually, officials from Colorado Parks and Wildlife took a look at the footage, and according to them, it's probably just a raccoon suffering from mange, but as always, what are your thoughts? Back in 2014, ABC 7 reported on a bizarre creature a couple spotted at their home in South Texas. According to Jackie Stocks, her husband noticed the animal in their yard, helping itself to some corn. He said he'd spent plenty of time around raccoons while hunting and was convinced that this wasn't one. The biggest thing that stood out to him was the sound it made. He said he'd never heard a raccoon growl like that before. The station also brought a wildlife expert to examine the footage, and after watching it, the expert said the animal was most likely a canine with mange, but not everyone was convinced. One detail people kept pointing to was the way the creature used its front limbs. I mean, look how it uses its hands to eat here. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's definitely not a dog. Kinda looks like it could be a raccoon, but it's hard to say for sure. A man named Jerry posted this next video to Reddit, asking to help identify the creature recorded on this trail camera. As with most of the other videos on the list, we see what I can only describe as a hairless critter. Not a whole lot of action in this video, unfortunately, but at least we see the thing clearly. This one actually looks kinda cute. Wouldn't expect to see this thing sinking its fangs into some poor dead goat, but you never know, looks can be deceiving. The trail cam belonging to the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Department caught photos of an animal that had people convinced they were looking at a chupacabra. The images spread pretty fast, and it's easy to see why. Whatever is in these photos looks pretty far from anything you'd expect to see wandering through the Alabama wilderness. The department studied the photos and put out a statement. According to them, what the trail camera actually picked up was a coyote with a severe case of mange. Now, whether you buy that or not is up to you. Mange can do some genuinely strange things to an animal's appearance, though, and it's worth noting that a hairless, gaunt coyote photographed in low light on a trail cam looks remarkably similar to many descriptions of the cryptid. Finally, we have this now infamous image from the Amarillo Zoo and Sanctuary in Texas. This was captured back in May of 2022, taken by a security camera at around 1:30 a.m. What exactly is this thing? Well, before you say it's just a lion on its hind legs, which would also be freaky, mind you, this thing was outside of the zoo, so it's not in one of the enclosures. I mean, maybe one escaped, but there were a lot of comments saying this looked like a werewolf. Sonic the Hedgehog also came up a number of times, but seeing as this is Texas, you also gotta consider the chupacabra possibility. I find the chupacabra angle more believable than a half-man, half-wolf monster, or a lovable blue anthropomorphic hedgehog who runs really fast. There's also a big chance this could just be a trick of the camera. Security footage can be kind of janky sometimes. Maybe we have a zoo prankster on our hands, or maybe this is a super deformed person, and if that's the case, I hope they're doing alright. This footage comes from the latest wave of UAP releases that have been all over the news recently. Back in February 2023, the US military scrambled a pair of F-16 fighter jets to check out a strange object flying 20,000 feet over Lake Huron, right along the border of Michigan and Canada. The government deemed it a hazard to civilian planes. One of the jets fired a Sidewinder missile, blowing the thing completely out of the sky. For years, the public didn't get to see what actually happened up there. Thanks to the massive new batch of declassified government files, the Pentagon finally released the actual footage of the shootdown. The video is filmed in infrared and shows the fighter jet locking onto the object. When the missile hits, the Pentagon description says the object bursts apart in a radial displacement pattern, which is just a fancy way of saying the thing blew the hell up. At the time of the incident, officials described the target as an octagonal shape with strings dangling on. Looking at the newly released video, some experts say it looks a lot like a rogue weather weather balloon, but the audio recordings from the actual pilots inside the cockpit tells a different story. Right before the shootdown, you can hear one of the pilots say, "I wouldn't really call it a balloon, I don't know what. I can see it outside with my eyes." While the government recovered debris from the lake and claimed it wasn't a national security threat, the fact that they kept the footage locked away on a classified network for years does kinda say something. Alright, you want an alien being captured on camera? This is one of the clearest videos that you're gonna get. Clearly filmed at night, someone is hitting a patch of bushes with their flashlight, and it doesn't take long to realize why. Something is lurking in the brush. Bulbous head, big, pure black eyes. It looks like your classic gray. It stands there for a few moments staring out of the bushes before turning to the side and strolling further into the woods. Supposedly, this was recorded near the site of a UFO crash recovery operation. But as for where this was filmed or who was investigating, none of that info is available. Supposedly, this video was leaked by someone on the team investigating the crash, who chose not to be named. Yeah, it's pretty dubious, and it could definitely be a hoax, but this is some pretty clear footage, and you just don't get a lot of cryptid creature videos like this, let alone ones with aliens. So, if anything, I appreciate the boldness of it. What you're looking at here is footage of what would later be referred to as the Salford alien. Back in January 2015, a clip dropped on YouTube that got the local community in Salford, UK really talking. It was uploaded by a channel called Paratruthers, and the video shows this pale, incredibly thin figure with a massive, oversized head. I guess walking around, I don't know, it's moving really strangely. The channel that posted it described it as being way too tall and skinny to be a regular human, with skin that looked wet, almost like a snake. They also claimed it was a specific rare type of tall, white-gray alien that had never been spotted in the UK before. And to add a bit of extra drama to the whole thing, the account claimed they were actually shut down by the government shortly after, though they never specified which government did it. Naturally, the internet did what it always does, and people split into two camps. Some who live in the area were genuinely freaked out by this. One person said the head looked completely creepy, it moved all weird, and that everyone down at the local pub was talking about it. It's not the only weird thing to happen in that part of England. The area actually has a bit of a history of this stuff, with over 20 UFO sightings reported over the years, including one person who called the Ministry of Defense claiming they saw 17 spaceships filled with little green aliens. This next one was caught near a home in Moorhead, Kentucky back in 2022. So there's this pale, human-like figure creeping around the back garden of a house. The creature looks super lanky and hunched over, moving with a really weird, unnatural gait. The clip's been shared all over the place, news sites have talked about it, yada yada. So as you can imagine, people have picked it apart. One of the things a lot of people brought up is the lighting, with one person commenting, "The question I have is this infrared? Because the pale creature would actually be dark colored if it were a dude in a black suit, showing up white in that case." Another thing people noticed right away is that the camera isn't steady, with someone asking, if this was taken with a security camera, why is the camera moving like someone is holding it? Security cams are fixed and don't float around. But a local paranormal research firm jumped into the replies and explained exactly why that is, writing, "To answer why the camera is moving, you can see the reflection of the person recording this footage from their phone in the glass of the monitor. As to what it is, a recording of a recording degrade the quality of the original footage. No way to know what we're seeing." The footage you're looking at here comes from a man named Gary LaMotta. He was a fisherman who'd spent enough time in the water to know what belonged there and what didn't. On this particular morning in May of 1969, he and his crewmate Earl Stozinger were headed out about a half mile from the shore of Vancouver Island's northwest coast. It was calm seas, clear visibility, a pretty routine day. But that changed when they saw something off the port side of the boat neither of them could place. It was at the surface, rolling, circling, occasionally lifting what looked like large flippers out of the water. LaMotta and Stozinger watched it for several minutes trying to figure out what they were looking at. Whatever it was big, about 38 feet long, 6 feet across, blotchy white and gray. It had two fins toward the rear, a pair of side flippers, and a neck stretching 8 feet out from the front of its body. At the end of that neck was a head with eyes, nostrils, a mouth, and a beak. It looked like a sea turtle just scaled up. Only thing missing was a shell. At some point, LaMotta remembered he had an 8mm camera on board, so he started filming. The animal was still at the surface, sitting roughly 50 feet off the boat, close enough that the footage, which later aired on the TV show Sightings, captured a flipper breaking the water's surface. LaMotta held on to the footage for over 2 decades before dropping it off in 1991 at the office of Dr. Paul LeBlanc, a researcher who studied reported sea creature encounters in British Columbia. LeBlanc noticed the creature in the footage but couldn't pin it down. The image was just too underexposed. The tape had also been damaged over the years after LaMotta's kids got their hands on it at some point, and yeah, the footage is really hard to make out. Doesn't help that it was recorded in 1969. But again, LaMotta wasn't a stranger to the ocean. He knew what seals and whales looked like. Whatever he filmed that morning, he was adamant that it was neither of those. News of this just came out earlier this month. A research expedition off the coast of Brazil turned up 31 species that nobody had ever documented before. And this was a really interesting expedition because the team was working in what's called the midwater. So not the surface and not right at the bottom either. They were in the massive stretch of water in between. It's technically the largest habitat on Earth, but almost nobody studies it. I mean, when I said researchers found 31 new sea creatures, you're probably assuming they were exploring the bottom. But what did they find down there? Ghostly worms, jellies that move using these glittering hair-like limbs, single-celled organisms that were big enough to see with the naked eye? Or were these tadpole-shaped creatures that build themselves little homes out of their own mucus? There was a see-through squid, and much more. Expedition leader Dr. Karen Osborne of the Smithsonian said the midwater is filled with creatures researchers are only just starting to understand. A lot of this was only possible because of how the team approached it. Most of these animals are so fragile that touching them would destroy them, so instead of collecting specimens the traditional way, they used equipment that could scan and photograph the animals in place without disturbing them. So lasers, microscopes small enough to send down on a dive. One piece of equipment was being used underwater for the very first time. Back in 2009, a group of fishermen in Alaska captured video of something strange moving across the water. Nobody on the boat could figure out what they were looking at, and once the footage started making the rounds, people immediately connected it to a creature that's been reported in the Pacific Northwest for more than 100 years. The name that kept coming up was Cadborosaurus, or Caddy for short. It's named after Cadboro Bay in British Columbia, where a lot of the sightings have been reported. Witnesses usually describe a long neck, a horse-like head, big eyes, and humps sticking out of the water. One of the people who took the footage seriously was, again, researcher Paul LeBlanc, who spent years studying Cadborosaurus and even wrote a book about it. After watching the video, he said he was pretty impressed that the creature reminded him of a plesiosaur. The Cadborosaurus story gets even stranger when you look back at an incident from 1937. Workers at a whaling station in British Columbia reportedly found a strange carcass inside the stomach of a whale. A museum in Victoria said it was probably a fetal baleen whale, but years later, a former worker named James Wakeland claimed he'd seen the remains himself and insisted they looked nothing like an unborn whale. But back to the 2009 footage. Skeptics have said it could just be a frilled shark or a giant eel. LeBlanc disagreed though. He pointed out that the animal seems to move up and down through the water rather than side to side. Fish typically swim by flexing their bodies left and right. On April 25th, a deep-sea camera attached to an oil rig off the coast of Great Britain picked up something really bizarre looking. This weird blob drifts into view. Didn't really look like anything specific. There's no clear head, no tail, eyes, or tentacles sticking out in any obvious way. It's just this soft, gelatinous thing slowly drifting through the water. At one point, it floats toward the camera, then kind of backs off, then comes in again. One early idea was that it might be something like a whale placenta floating down from above. That got dismissed pretty quickly though. This was very deep down, and anything like that would have been broken down or eaten long before it showed up on camera. When the footage hit the internet, you had all the usual sea monster reactions, and scientists started taking a proper look at it. Craig McLean, a deep sea biologist at Duke University, went through the footage and pointed out that you could actually make out reproductive organs inside the body. And that detail helped narrow things down a lot. After comparing it with known species, he linked it to a deep sea jellyfish called Deepstaria enigmatica. Other researchers refined it a bit further, said it was more likely Deepstaria reticulum, a close relative. It's a jellyfish with a weird translucent body that can look like it's glowing when light hits it. Before this, it had only been recorded a handful of times, so Even though it's identified, it's still a very mysterious creature. This next one takes us back to May 2007 out in Metepec, Mexico. A rancher named Raul Lopez was checking out his barn when he found this tiny creature trapped in one of his animal traps. He panicked and ended up drowning the thing, and its body was eventually sold to a UFO researcher named Jaime Muzan. When you look at the photos of the carcass, it does look pretty freaky. It's small, skinny, and, well, alien looking, for lack of a better term. The story was a massive deal in the UFO and cryptid community for years. People were excited, believing this could be a real alien or some other kind of undiscovered creature. Scientists eventually ran DNA and medical tests on the body, including MRI scans, to figure out what they were actually looking at. But as you can imagine, the internet has totally picked this thing apart over the years, and the whole mystery eventually unraveled. Turns out the DNA test showed the creature was 100% a regular animal. Specifically, it was a skinned squirrel monkey. The rancher's nephew later confessed that he'd taken the dead monkey, removed its fur and skin, and placed it in the trap as a prank. And it worked, because I mean, damn, does that thing look creepy. This photo was taken on September 22nd, 2004, over in Mexico, and the story behind it is pretty interesting. A security guard was doing his regular night shift inside an abandoned office building. Around 10:45 p.m., he was walking down a dark hallway when he spotted something standing in the shadows. First, he squinted. He thought it was maybe a kid who'd snuck in, but as he got closer, he realized this short humanoid figure didn't look human at all. He managed to grab his old Kodak digital camera and snap a single picture before the thing bolted. He chased after it down the hall, but it completely vanished into thin air. Now, the internet is flooded with photos and videos of weird lights in the sky. This is one of the rare times someone claims to have caught an actual alien creature on camera. The quality is kinda rough, which makes sense for, a basic consumer digital camera from the mid-2000s, but the creature in the shot does look undeniably alien. It could easily be a hoax, but there are also a good number of people who seem to find this pretty convincing. The photo has been floating around the web for over 2 decades. Ever since it first hit the internet, people have been arguing about whether the story is real. Definitely helps that Mexico is already a massive hotbed for UFO activity. Fun fact, Montana ranks in the top 5 for the most UFO sightings per capita. There's a specific area known as Redgate near a town called Deer Lodge that is a massive hotspot. A local guy named Donald Bromley said, "It's just very rich in the paranormal field, like the UFOs, lights in the sky, unexplainable things," end quote. But the reason we're talking about Redgate right now is because of a crazy image Donald caught on his trail camera back in 2021. It snapped a picture of this pale humanoid figure walking through the woods. When Donald first looked at the photo, he thought it was just maybe a regular guy, but the details kind of threw him off. He said, "The first one to think it was a person, but the more I looked at it, it was just odd. It was out of place, and everything just matches the alien persona. The bigger bulbous head. You could tell it has no clothes. It's kind of a transparent being," end quote. The whole area has this really heavy history. A filmmaker named Patrick Cutler, who'd researched the spot, said the name Redgate actually comes from a horrific local legend, saying, quote, "Basically there was a guy who had a farm or homestead and came home one day from work and basically unalived his entire family and painted their gate red with their BLOOD, end quote. Ever since then, the area's been a bit of a magnet for what researchers call high strangeness. Cutler mentioned that people driving around the area will see bizarre things fly across the sky, or cars would just completely stall out for no reason, stuff like that. Finally though, we have a very bizarre piece of footage captured in India. Jharkhand, a group of bikers were riding down a dark road late at night and they noticed a strange figure walking along the side of the highway. The video quality is obviously kind of rough, but you could still clearly see the shape of this thing. The figure looks pale, incredibly thin, and it moves in this stiff, unnatural way. At one point it turns its head toward the bikers. Its eyes seem to glow with this yellowish color in the dark. After the clip started spreading online, a lot of viewers began saying the figure looked almost alien-like. Nobody really knows what the bikers actually recorded that night, but whatever it was, it is not the kind of thing I'd ever want to run into in the middle of a desolate road at night. This footage comes from August 2010 in Japan's Sagami Bay. An ROV was scanning the ocean floor when it recorded something very strange. Take a look. You notice this shape in the shadows, and as the camera gets closer and closer, you make out what looks like a pair of eyes on the smooth, round head. When the clip was shared online, it was picked up and reshared all over the place, with people comparing it to the infamous creature known as the Ningen. The Ningen is said to be a mysterious aquatic humanoid creature, sits firmly in the cryptid category. And this next piece of footage is also said to have captured the creature. Couldn't find where the original footage came from, but this clip was posted to Reddit 10 years ago by a now deleted user who wrote, "This video purportedly shows the Ningen, a cryptid resembling a giant aquatic humanoid." Now, it's hard to make out what we're looking at here. Am I saying I believe this is genuine footage of some undiscovered sea monster? No, but I do think the cloudiness of the video kinda adds to the creep factor. It has a certain Lovecraftian quality about it. This dark, shadowy thing floating through the murky water. Now, obviously, this is a video of a whale, but this footage is far more incredible than you think. This is a very rare species to see. It's called Amura's whale, or the dwarf fin whale. It wasn't even confirmed as its own species until 2003, and even then, everything scientists knew about it came from dead specimens. For over a decade after that, nobody had ever seen one alive. That changed in October 2015, when an international team of biologists working off the coast of Madagascar encountered them in the wild for the first time. They documented 44 of them. It was the first time the species had ever been observed and recorded alive. By whale standards, they're relatively small, somewhere between 32 and 39 feet long, which is part of why they've been mistaken for Bird's whales for such a long time. Up close though, they're pretty distinct. The lower jaw is asymmetrical, so you got white on the right side and dark on the left. Their fins are also unique enough that if you're in a position to compare, you can tell them apart. Since this 2015 recording, they have been spotted a handful of times, but sightings are still super rare, and of course there's still a lot about them that we don't know. A Reddit user posted this freaky footage saying this creature had only been captured 2 times on video. The general consensus in the comments was, "What the hell is that thing?" and "keep it away from me." It is almost impossible to make sense of. You just have no idea what you're looking at unless you know what you're looking at. It's a deep sea siphonophore. These things are incredibly strange though. What you're looking at here is not actually a single creature, it's an entire colony of tiny animals fused together, functioning as one living organism. Some parts are responsible for swimming, some catch food, some handle reproduction. None of them can survive on their own. It's kind of like an ant colony where every member has a different job, except in this case, they're physically connected. There's also this footage captured during a 2020 expedition off Western Australia. Researchers spotted this massively long siphonophore hundreds of meters below the surface. They couldn't even fit the entire thing in the camera frame. Based on measurements taken from the footage, scientists estimated the colony could have stretched up to 119 meters, or roughly 390 feet long. That's longer than a blue whale, and potentially longer than any other animal ever recorded. What do you think a mermaid would actually look like in real life? I'll tell you, if it looked like this, the Disney classic would have never been made. This footage comes from 2009. Story goes that these divers were exploring a car wreck when they had a very unlikely and unwelcome visitor. Now, did you spot anything there? I'm gonna guess you probably didn't. This happened super fast, which is actually part of the reason I like this video. It's very subtle. Let's slow it down. And now, let's try zooming in. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that is downright chilling. Now, could it be some kind of fish? Maybe, but it looks humanoid, alien-like, and the fact that it's just lurking in the shadowy depths of the water right next to these divers who had no idea anything was there at the time. Yeah, I don't know. Real or not, this one gives me the willies. First glance, this looks like just footage of people swimming around in the water, but looking closer, you'll actually notice some of them seem to have what look like fishtails. This video's been shared around and re-uploaded all over the place. It was originally recorded by a woman in Chile just days after a massive earthquake. I do spot what could be fishy-looking tails, but the video's also captured from pretty far away, so it could be people's eyes playing tricks. I've also seen this video pop up, with uploaders saying it was footage taken on the exact same day, kind of a different angle here. These creatures bobbing up and down in the water like whack-a-moles. What do you think of this footage? Are these misidentified animals? Are the videos outright hoaxes? Or did you find them genuinely strange? Share your thoughts down below. Now for more of a classic looking mermaid. Now we all hate it when people seem to have extreme Parkinson's as soon as they try to film some fantastical creature, whether it be Bigfoot or an alien, but to be fair in this case, they were speeding through the water on a motorboat. This footage was captured by Sydney Harbour in Australia in 2008. The uploader, Claire Radical, wrote in the description, "Check out this mermaid, seriously. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. She was just sitting on the rocks near the HMAS Sydney landmark looking straight at us. Has anyone seen something like this before? Is it for real?" Well, I can't say if it's for real or not, but Australia does have a long history of mermaid sightings and folklore. Long before Europeans showed up, Aboriginal people from different parts of the country told stories about powerful beings that lived in rivers and along the coast. They weren't always half fish, half human like mermaids that you see in movies, but were often described as mysterious water spirits that people respected and sometimes feared. A lot of the stories warned people not to wander too close to certain stretches of water, especially alone. Probably the closest thing to a classic mermaid is a creature called the yak-yak. She's usually described as a woman with long flowing hair and the tail of a fish, living in freshwater pools and creeks in northern Australia. Some stories say she could bring good luck. Others say you definitely didn't want to disturb the places where she lived. People have found ancient Aboriginal rock paintings showing figures that do look just like her, which tells you these stories have been around for thousands of years. Here's some more nightmare fuel. This footage was captured in 2014. Supposedly, a team of marine biologists were returning to shore from an expedition when they noticed something breaching the water. One of them began recording only to realize they had no idea what this thing was. It was keeping pace with the boat though, and as you can see, they were going at a pretty good clip. It's also very obvious it isn't swimming like any known sea creature. It looks like a large humanoid doing a kind of butterfly stroke, only incredibly fast. It's freaky looking. Now, as for the validity of this video, yeah, I'm not sure about that, but it's some unsettling stuff regardless. On November 20th, 2016, an unidentified man claimed to have photographed what he believed was the Mothman while driving along State Route 2 in West Virginia. He handed the images over to a local news station, WCHS, which aired them the following day. Photos are grainy, but there's clearly something in the sky, this dark silhouette of a two-legged winged creature flying around the treetops. And depending on how you look at it, it does bear a resemblance to a dragon just as much as anything else. But for anyone who doesn't know the backstory, the Mothman is a creature tied to Point Pleasant, a small city on the western border of West Virginia. First started being reported in 1966, and the sightings became especially loaded when the Silver Bridge collapsed over the Ohio River in 1967, killing dozens of people. A lot of folks started connecting the two, treating Mothman sightings as this bad omen. At the time of the original sightings, the police were not exactly buying into the monster narrative. Mason County Sheriff George Johnson said he thought it was probably a shitepoke, which is a type of heron. And by December 1st, 1966, authorities and a local biologist were telling the press they believed it was a sandhill crane that had wandered off its migration route. A wildlife biology professor from West Virginia University pointed out that the sandhill crane stands almost as tall as a man, has a wingspan of over 7 feet, and has large circles of bare reddish flesh around its eyes, which would explain the red eyes in most of the reports. Now that's actually a pretty solid explanation, but the story, it took on a life of its own, especially with all the sensational headlines at the time. One newspaper ran with "Monster, no joke for those who saw it." And then later there was a 1975 book called The Mothman Prophecies, followed by a 2002 film of the same name. As for these photos from 2016, could they be hoaxed? Absolutely, but I can't deny they are effectively spooky. Back in 2017, this image was all over the internet. It didn't get picked up by any major publications, but it spread everywhere online. It was taken in Phoenix, Arizona by a man named Richard Christensen, who wrote, "What the hell do you see in this picture for reals?" Now, by all accounts, he was just as baffled as everyone else by what he'd captured. Photo shows it appears to be some sort of large winged creature, dark, shadowy, and people couldn't agree on what they were looking at. Some said Mothman, others said it looked like an angel or a demon, or of course, a dragon. But what do you all think? Share your thoughts down in the comments. And closing out, this really is footage of a real dragon. You cannot tell me that this is not a dinosaur. BBC cameraman Mark McEwen had spent an entire day out filming Komodo dragons in Indonesia for Planet Earth 2, and when he got back to his hotel, the fun didn't stop. A Komodo was sitting right there in the bathroom. Local guides tried to lure it out using ropes and a piece of rotten meat. McEwen said at the time, not quite what you expect to find when you go to the bathroom. The next problem we've got is how to get a dragon out of the toilet. He looks quite comfortable. Once they finally coaxed it out of the bathroom, the dragon just made itself at home in the bedroom instead. And it finished what it started in the bathroom all over the floor before walking out the front door back into the wilderness. Komodo dragons are incredible animals. They grow up to 3 meters long, just under 10 feet, and can weigh around 200 pounds. When cornered, they've been known to aggressively attack humans, in some cases even eat them. But they mainly prey on pigs and goats. They're considered one of the most powerful lizards on the planet. This footage comes from somewhere in Brazil. It's hard to make out exactly what's in the water here, but a lot of commenters pointed out whatever was recorded does seem to be a real animal at the very least. The video description says it's a possible mermaid captured on camera though, and Brazil does have its own specific mermaid legend, a creature known as the Lara. The story of the Lara has been around in Brazil for centuries, and if you ask people living along parts of the Amazon, plenty will tell you she's more than just a fairy tale. Depending on who's telling the story, she's described as an unbelievably beautiful woman with long, dark, or greenish hair living beneath the rivers and lakes of the Amazon basin. The name itself roughly translates to Lady of the Waters. The most famous version says, Lara waits just below the surface, singing to anyone unlucky enough to wander too close to the water. Fishermen, hunters, and travelers, they'd hear her voice, become completely hypnotized, and follow it into the river. Some stories say they're drowned, others say they're taken beneath the water to live with her forever, never to be seen again. Either way, if someone disappeared near the river, people would often say that the Lara had taken them. One version of the legend also gives her an origin story. So before becoming a river spirit, Lara was said to be an incredibly skilled indigenous warrior whose own brothers grew jealous of her. They tried to kill her. She fought back and accidentally killed them instead, and as punishment, her father had her thrown into the river, where she transformed into the mysterious water being people still talk about today. This next one's also genuinely creepy. Looks like some guy out swimming by himself in a murky lake somewhere, though I couldn't figure out exactly where it was filmed. Everything seems normal at first. He pops up for a breath, goes back underwater, and then this happens. If you're wearing headphones, you're definitely gonna hear it. That deep growling sound, that is creepy. I mean, imagine being alone in the water, you can't even see a few feet in front of you, and then you hear something like that coming from underneath. The murky water really sells this too, because you never know what's about to appear. Every second you're expecting something to come flying out of the darkness. Well, right before the clip ends, he surfaces one last time and catches this on camera. This is one of those videos that's just bizarre. Supposedly it was filmed somewhere in Kenya, although other people claim it came from a different part of Africa, so nobody really seems to know where it actually originated. Wherever it came from, it shows what looks like a young girl lying on a beach with what appears to be the tail of a fish instead of legs, while a crowd gathers around her. Now, there's obviously a real person in the video. The weird part is trying to figure out what you're actually looking at. Is someone wearing an incredibly convincing costume? Is there a real fish somehow attached to her? The tail even twitches a little, which is off-putting. Honestly, the biggest mystery isn't whether it's a real mermaid, it's why this video exists in the first place. If it's staged, somebody put a surprising amount of effort into it. If it isn't, then what on earth is happening here? This image here hit Blogger back in 2018, uploaded by user Mundo Elemental, who gave some background on the photo, writing, "At the beginning of 2014, along the beaches of Monte Rico, Guatemala, locals claimed that during the night they'd captured strange beings arriving and resting on the shore. They also reported hearing unusual sounds before the creatures disappeared back into the water. They described the sound as angelic music, while those who claimed to have seen the silhouettes described them as women with tails that looked like a huge fish fin. They said the creatures quickly dove into the water after noticing the presence of people nearby. This week, an image appeared that was reportedly captured by a local fisherman who spotted one of these creatures and took a photo. After realizing it had been seen, the quote-unquote mermaid immediately fled. The fisherman admitted that he panicked when the creature went under, saying, "I've never seen anything like that before. I didn't even have the courage to go fishing that night." This one comes from Dallas, Texas. We don't know who filmed it or exactly where in the city it was shot. Not a lot of context to work with. What we do know, though, is that this is no small animal. The creature is first spotted resting on top of what looks like a radio tower. Even from a significant distance, you can clearly make out just how massive this thing is when it stretches out its wings and then takes off. Not in any rushed or panicked way, just casually lifts off and flies out of frame. The camera operator zooms back and you can see they were standing on a moderately busy street, which is kind of wild, though anyone driving by probably had a much worse angle, may not have even clocked it the way the person filming did. Pretty outlandish video, but it was recorded before AI-generated videos started hitting the web, so if it is a hoax, it's a pretty well-made one. Apparently this one was also filmed somewhere in the United States. Looking at the surroundings, telephone wires, low rooftops, an antenna in the background, it has all the markings of a residential area. The dragon moves across the screen at this relaxed pace. One thing that immediately stands out about this one, compared to the other dragon footage, is the wings. They're very bony and angular, almost bat-like. But this is definitely not a bat. After a few moments, it seems like something catches its attention, because it descends behind a house and disappears from view. In January 2026, this insane-looking video started making the rounds, claiming to show a large white dragon. And the story was that it was filmed at a secret government facility in China. The clip was divided into 3 cuts, showing the dragon in this grassy clearing surrounded by trees, with 1 or 2 people seen interacting with it. It spread across X, Instagram, and Facebook, with one user posting "New white dragon spotted in China." It looked like an incredible piece of video, but there was always the very high possibility it was AI generated. The original post came from a TikTok account called Faunavision7, uploaded on January 7th, 2026. The caption was written in Indonesian and translated reads, "Is this legend of the grandmother who raised a dragon real? In remote parts of China, an old story circulates about a white dragon living in hiding, guarded by an unknown grandmother in the middle of the forest. In Chinese history, white dragons are believed to be sacred creatures that maintain the balance of nature and are harbingers of great change." This footage has brought that old story back into discussion there. Well, it's a cool sounding story, but is the video real? Obviously, without a doubt, 100%. Well, this is some interesting footage. In August 2016, this video was posted online claiming it was a real recording of a dead dragon found on a beach after falling from the sky in Tibet. The video racked up millions of views. I mean, the thing looks super realistic. It also got a lot of attention because dragons have a strong presence in Tibetan and Bhutanese folklore. There's said to be a creature called the Druk, the thunder dragon. It's so deeply woven into Bhutanese culture, it's literally on the country's flag, holding jewels representing wealth. Bhutan is actually called Drukyul in its language, which translates to Land of Druk or Land of the Thunder Dragon. Pretty cool. The rulers are called the Thunder Dragon Kings. The national anthem translates to Kingdom of Druk. This dragon is everywhere. The whole Thunder Dragon thing in Bhutan goes back to an old Buddhist monk who started a spiritual tradition in the Himalayas centuries ago. When he started building a monastery in Tibet, a huge storm rolled in out of nowhere. In that tradition, thunder was not just weather. People believed it was the sound of a dragon echoing through the sky. He took the storm as a sign and tied the monastery's name to it. From there, his followers started being known as the people of the Thunder Dragon. And as that group spread into what is now Bhutan, the symbol remained. Over time, the whole region became associated with it, eventually being called the Land of the Thunder Dragon. Even much later, into the early 1900s, Bhutan's top religious figures were all wearing ceremonial hats decorated with dragon designs, basically keeping that original idea alive right up into modern times. This one was filmed in Pennsylvania. So the sky is overcast with heavy gray clouds, and flying up near those clouds is what looks like some kind of large flying creature. Is it a bird? If it is, it's a big one. Commenters started saying it looked like a dragon, others threw out pterodactyl. Either way, even though it naturally blends into that gray skyline, you can still pick out some details. The wings are large and pointed, the body is relatively small and round, and has this long, slender tail tailing behind it. Now, given how dark and windy it was that day, probably not surprising that this is the only footage, apparently the only sighting in this thing. See if you can spot a very small humanoid creature walking across the frame in this security camera footage. You see two little legs, a bit of the torso and head, but no arms. It's similar to the Fresno Nightcrawler, just scaled down. Interestingly though, this footage supposedly comes from Skinwalker Ranch, and if you know anything about Skinwalker Ranch, you know it's a hotspot for sightings just like this. Skinwalker Ranch, southeast of Ballard, Utah, has a genuinely strange reputation. When the Sherman family moved in during the early 90s, their cattle started turning up mutilated. Oddly, they seemed to have clean surgical cuts. Their dogs would also disappear. They reported UFOs hovering over the fields and strange orbs drifting around at night. Billionaire Robert Bigelow bought the place in 1996 and sent in a team of scientists to investigate. The ranch even ended up with its own show on the History Channel documenting all the weird stuff said to go on there. This creepy footage supposedly shows an alien entity being recovered from a crashed UFO in Brazil. I can't speak to the footage being genuine or not, but the thing does look pretty convincing. And there's a bigger story behind the footage, a pretty famous one at that. In Varginha, Brazil, on January 20th, 1996, at around 3:30 in the afternoon, three young women said they saw something crouching on the street. They described it as a humanoid creature with a large head, skin that looked like it had veins running through it, three bumps on top of its head, and bright red eyes. They said it looked weak, unsteady, like it might have been sick or injured. They ran off and told their mother that they'd just seen the devil. And after that, stories started spreading in the area about UFOs seen in the days before. And then more reports piled on top of that. Rumors about creatures being taken away by the military were rolling through the city. There were also multiple animal deaths at the local zoo. The Brazilian military investigated the whole thing, but of course, they denied anything extraterrestrial going on. Their conclusion was that the girls ran into a local man who was known to have mental disabilities, crouching near a wall, wet and dirty from the heavy rain. Did the girls just get spooked and let their imaginations get the best of them? Definitely possible, but what about the UFO reports and the animal deaths? Misidentifications and coincidences, or was there something stranger going on? Share your thoughts in the comments. This photograph was supposedly snapped in a rural village in Peru right around a time where some seriously strange things were being reported. This is the case of the face peelers. So in 2023, members of the Akitu tribe claimed they were being attacked by 7-foot-tall alien-like creatures they called Los Palicares, which translates to the face peelers. At one point, after one of these encounters, a teenage girl was taken to the hospital. One community leader said she barely escaped the attack, but ended up injured during the struggle, with part of her neck being cut. After the first reports, villagers said the incidents kept happening for weeks, starting around July 11th. The villagers claimed these beings would show up almost every night, described as having large heads and yellowish eyes. There were also reports that they were immune to hunting weapons, saying shots didn't seem to affect them. And not only that, they'd apparently float, hovering about a meter off the ground. The attacks died down soon after the military moved in to investigate. One theory is that these so-called face peelers, creepy name, were actually illegal jetpack-wearing gold miners trying to scare the tribe off. Even if that is the case though, it still makes for one of the strangest UFO cases I've ever heard of. Back in 2022, a man was driving along a rural dirt road at night when his headlights hit something he'd never seen before, or thankfully since. At first he thought it was a person, but the closer it got to his headlights, the clearer he could make it out, and once it was fully illuminated, he knew this was not a person. The thing is pale, spindly, crawling on all fours. It also has no fur and doesn't seem to move like any known animal. Understandably, the guy threw the car in reverse and just backed the hell out of there. This has become one of the most famous cryptid alien videos on the internet. A few years back in La Junta, Colorado, a woman named Vivian Gomez noticed her porch camera had picked up something in the middle of the night. When she checked the footage the next morning, she was pretty confused by what she saw. There was some kind of figure wandering around her driveway. It didn't look human, at least not quite. It looked like some sort of alien-type creature, or a goblin, or a Dobby from Harry Potter. This thing has a lot of nicknames. Vivian threw the clip on Facebook, and it went absolutely nuts, over 10 million views in under a week. Before long, actual news crews were showing up at her door. She said when she showed her son the footage, they were both just standing there going, "What the heck is that?" She was not particularly scared by what it was, though she did quietly go fix her screen door afterward, just in case. The creature never showed up on camera again, though. To get a more expert take, reporters tracked down Chuck Zukowski, a UFO field investigator who's been looking into UFO sightings, Bigfoot encounters, and cattle mutilations for over 30 years. He's delivered hundreds of lectures on the subject and even has his own show on the Travel Channel, following him and a small crew as they investigate recent alien and creature sightings. On top of that, he's an engineer, so he approaches this stuff methodically, doing his best to find rational explanations before jumping to conclusions. Zukowski watched the La Junta footage and said it genuinely threw him off. "I'm watching it over and over again and I'm going, this doesn't make sense," he said. What caught his attention especially was the way the figure moved. "I've done enough investigations to know that aliens don't walk like us. Because the gait is off, the way the arms are swinging is off. That tells me, okay, that's a possibility, this could be good," end quote. He also said he understood why a lot of people were skeptical at the same time. As he put it, "What I try to do is I try to gather evidence and put the evidence out there, and it's for the viewers to decide." So, as always, what do you all think that this was? Now, if you've frequented the weird/paranormal side of the internet, you've likely seen this image here. It's pretty famous. The photo's been floating around since 1993. There are more images and a pretty interesting backstory too. So, back in July of 1993, the Italian Air Force was alerted to an unidentified aircraft that had entered Italian airspace. An intercept wing was scrambled, made visual contact with the craft, and was given the green light to fire on it. Just before the missile reached its target, the pilots reported something strange. A ball of light appeared to separate from the main craft and fall away toward the ground. The primary craft, they said, was destroyed. Fragments of it rained down on the town of Abruzzi. That's where a man named Filberto Capone enters the story. When he stepped out of his home, he came face to face with this strange being right there at his door. Capone kept his cool long enough to grab his camera and photograph the thing. By the time he'd gone back in to put the camera away and returned outside, the creature was gone. Capone published the photographs in a local newspaper, and it wasn't long before the police came knocking and supposedly left with his photos. The newspaper refused to hand over their copies, thus why we still have some grainy images left over today. This UFO footage from Turkey is still regarded as one of the best ever filmed. Some say you can actually spot alien entities peering out of the windows of the craft. It was filmed flying over the skies of Kumburgaz, Turkey by a night security guard named Yalçın Yalman. He started noticing strange stuff in 2007 while working shifts by the Sea of Marmara. After spotting these strange lights in the sky on multiple nights, he decided to just buy a video camera and start recording to try and capture what was going on. And between 2007 and 2009, he caught these round, oval, and sometimes triangular objects hovering in the night sky. The footage got shared online, and UFO researchers took notice pretty quickly. A local UFO group looked at it and said the objects could not be explained as birds, planes, satellites, or weather phenomenon. Yalman went on TV, spoke at events about what he saw. He never claimed to know what it was, just that his footage was genuine and that he had no explanation for it. This video was being talked about all over the weird and paranormal side of the internet back in the summer of 2016. Apparently it was filmed somewhere in Portugal. This freaky humanoid figure with super long arms trudges across the sand before disappearing behind a bush. This one could definitely be faked, sure, but if we do entertain the possibility, Looks to be a cross between a Sasquatch and a Chupacabra. Pretty creepy. Now, what are we looking at here? Your guess is probably as good as mine. The person who uploaded the video wasn't sure what they were seeing either. Reddit user jturley85 shared the footage and explained his wife's coworker had gone hunting in the mountains with a pack of dogs. At some point, two of the dogs ran off. After searching for them, they were found torn apart. While trying to figure out what had done it, they spotted this strange figure in the distance and recorded it through a rifle scope. Later tried enhancing the footage to get a clearer look, but this was the best they could manage. Some commenters have pointed out that the figure appears to have unusually long, thin arms. There seems to be something hanging off them that almost looks like hair. The uploader considered the possibility that it was just another hunter, but wasn't exactly confident about that explanation. On its own, the footage is odd enough, but when you add the story about the dogs being found dead nearby, definitely makes whatever was lurking out there feel a lot more unsettling. These photos were originally posted to Reddit by user Perplexed Seal during an AMA discussion about skinwalkers. Along with the images, they shared a story about something they and their friends claimed to have seen one evening. The Redditor was sitting around a fire with friends, the sun was setting, and they were gathered near a dense wooded area. Looking out toward a field beside the tree line, they noticed this tall white figure in the distance. It wasn't especially close, but they said it immediately felt like it was watching them. Where they sat, it appeared to be either swaying back and forth or slowly moving in their direction. Perplexed Seal said the sight gave them such a bad feeling, they almost felt sick. While they were watching it, another friend turned on their car. At that moment, the figure stood upright on two legs, looked to be about 6 or 7 feet tall, and it ducked behind a bush. Spooked by what they'd just seen, Perplexed Seal decided to leave. The friend stayed behind and later reported seeing the figure again running extremely fast in circles around the field before disappearing into the trees. Now, are celebrities and the super rich secretly reptilian beings hiding among us? Some people certainly think so. One of the most common pieces of evidence brought up by believers is footage where someone's eyes appear to change shape for a split second. There are tons of videos like this online, but let's start with this clip of Justin Bieber. Notice how his eyes look completely normal at first, but then they look all weird, looking to be partially covered by a semi-translucent layer. People who are into the reptilian invader conspiracies have compared this to the kind of membrane some reptiles have that can slide over the eye while still letting them see. Celebrities and politicians are usually at the center of these claims. The idea is basically that if shape-shifting reptilians were real, they'd be most useful in places with power and influence. Here's another example, this interview footage of Nicki Minaj. For a split second, her pupils shift from round to a vertical slit before going back to normal almost immediately. What do you think? Is this just a case of the camera causing little visual glitches, or are there lizard people subtly controlling everything from politics to entertainment? This strange image was snapped back on July 21st, 1967 by a teenage boy named Ronnie Hill in North Carolina. He was out in his family's garden when a strange smell hit him, bad enough to make his eyes water. He looked over toward a nearby field and saw a spherical white craft, roughly 9 feet in diameter, sitting on the ground. Then something stepped out from behind it. It had spindly thin legs, an oversized head, was wearing a shiny silver suit. It walked over, pushed some kind of black object into the ground, pulled it back out, returned to the ship, and left. The whole thing happened in complete silence, but during that time, Ronnie had managed to run inside, grab a portable Kodak camera, and come back out in time to photograph the creature while it was still there, standing about 15 feet away. Now, it's a pretty far-fetched story, to say the least, and looking at the photo, there are some issues. There's not much in the image we can use for scale. The image quality isn't great either, but there's still an image connected to the case, and that's more than can be said about a lot of alien reports that have gotten more attention than this. Ronnie's case never really went anywhere, but meanwhile, people with nothing but a story to tell have sold books, gotten movie deals, and built entire followings. In 2015, two people walking along a riverbank in a small Russian town came across this creepy alien-looking thing. At first, they thought it was maybe a mutant chicken embryo, but it wasn't. One researcher said, "It seems that this body is neither fish nor fowl. This creature has a mysterious skull, no neck, and wings. It was examined by experts in an institute of biophysics who couldn't identify it. Biologist Igor Zadarev said extensive studies are needed to determine what kind of creature or organism it is. The body was apparently sent to Moscow for further testing. Scott C. Waring of UFO Sightings Daily said his tiny alien body was found near a river in Russia and has no resemblance to any animal known. Russian scientists are confused over what it could be and said they need to wait for the results of the tests. What were the results of those tests, though? It was never reported. And just what in the hell is this abomination? This honestly may be one of the ugliest things I've ever seen doing videos like this. Back in 2015, a woman named Gianna Papansi posted the image to Facebook. She'd heard a scream outside her home in San Jose, California at around 11:30 at night. She went to check outside and she found it. Of course, she had no idea what it was, neither did anyone else. She wrote, "I wasn't gonna post this, but I can't stop trying to figure out WTF this thing is. Heard something scream at like 11:30 last night, went on my side yard and found this thing. Was dead when I found it." The post made its way to Reddit, shared with the caption, "Friend found this outside her house, WTF indeed." Some people went straight to the most obvious conclusion, saying it's clearly an alien. Others thought it could be a miscarried animal fetus, but nobody could say for sure which species. Nobody ever identified it, but there's another aspect to this case that makes it even more interesting. People have been seeing strange lights in the sky in the area around this time, so the alien rumor began getting a lot more traction. Rational explanation or not, though, that is not something I would ever want to find in my yard or anywhere for that matter. We hear a lot of alien abduction stories, but I can't think of any piece of footage that claims to show one actually being captured on camera, aside from this. In the security camera footage, we see a worker at a warehouse walk through a gate. It's 11:16 p.m. and I mention the exact time because it is important to the story. So as the guy steps to the other side of this gate, there's a sudden flash of light and the camera goes black. The cameras were out for just under 2 hours before the picture comes back. And then the man appears again. He crawls out of the shadows, he's now on all fours. He throws up and then stands back up, staggering around confused. So, of course, the question is, what happened in those 2 hours when the cameras were out? Was this an alien abduction caught on camera? Was it a hoax? Share your thoughts down below. This creepy footage reportedly comes from a farmer in the United States. Been dealing with animal mutilations on his property, and when he heard his cows panicking one night, he armed himself and ran outside, only to capture this thing on camera, skulking around the edge of the property. Ran off at crazy speed before he could get a shot off. That's the story anyway. Is this footage pretty dubious? Admittedly, yes, but it's creepy looking regardless, and there are plenty of farmers, especially in the United States, with stories just like this, especially when it comes to strange cattle mutilations. In Compton, California, this piece of footage has become pretty famous too. A woman named Jessica Ortiz checked her Ring doorbell camera one night and did a complete double take. At around 1 a.m. on June 5th, 2025, the camera picked up this small, bizarre-looking figure moving across her driveway. It wasn't a dog, wasn't a cat, it wasn't any animal she could place, and it definitely was not a person. It moved fast, too, darting past the porch. A lot of people watching the footage have landed on the same word: alien. Ortiz was pretty shaken when she first saw it, genuinely questioning her own sanity for a moment, but she was not imagining things. The footage shows what it shows, and nobody's been able to explain it away. Her son took one look and immediately insisted that she call the police. She checked with her neighbors, and nobody had been out at the hour the footage was captured. Ortiz was also adamant the video was not staged or tampered with. What you see is genuinely what her camera captured. She's still not entirely sure what to make of it, but her take on the whole thing, she believes the universe is just too vast for humans to be the only sentient life in it. Hard to argue with that, really. Now, we've talked a lot about mysterious creatures on land, but let's not forget the ocean covers over 70% of our planet, and the truth is we've barely scratched the surface of what's down there. Countless species are still completely unknown to science, and sometimes one of them gets dragged up to the surface. That's exactly what happened to Roman Fedorstop, a Russian fisherman who's built up quite a following online for regularly sharing the weird things he pulls out of the sea. He's no stranger to bizarre catches, but even by his standards, this one was pretty freaky. What came up on his line was this dark gray slimy creature with a strange lump sitting on top of its body and what appeared to be a tail beneath it. The bulbous shape, it definitely makes it look less like a fish and more like something that crash landed from another planet. People online immediately started comparing it to the Martians from Mars Attacks. Others said it looked like something from an H.P. Lovecraft novel. Fedortsov thinks it was most likely a smooth toadfish from the Olympus family, native to the northern Pacific. The alien-like appearance probably down to decompression, so as the creature was hauled up from the deep, the change in pressure caused its body to swell up, giving it that bizarre, disfigured look. So yeah, there's a grounded explanation here, but it still goes to show how little we really know about the creature swimming around deep in the ocean. Now, when this footage first hit the internet, a lot of people wrote it off, because it's hard to actually see anything weird at first, but the more people studied the footage and dug into this case, the stranger it seemed. This one comes out of Las Vegas. On the night of April 30th, 2023, a bright green streak cut across the sky. More than 20 people across several states reported seeing the same thing that night. Shortly after, a man named Angel Kenmore called 911. He told the operator there was something in his backyard, a tall, skinny, greenish creature, somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall, hiding behind equipment on his property. Before the police arrived, Kenmore and his family grabbed a camera and went out to investigate themselves. And looking really closely at the footage, people pointed out there does seem to be something really tall moving past the top of the fence there. And a Reddit user named Matt73132 also posted this still. Claim is that this is a second creature lurking further into the backyard. It's hard to make out, but zooming in, and yeah, that looks a lot like an alien face to me. A crime scene reconstruction analyst named Scott Roeder also decided to go through the footage frame by frame. He said he identified at least 2 separate beings in the video.
Can you come out of the grass?
The footage you just saw there has been floating around the internet for a long time. It was recorded by a man named Alex Player in Australia back in 2010. He claimed to have captured footage of an alien creature in his backyard not once, but 4 separate times. Encounters were filmed on October 5th, October 24th, November 20th, and November 28th, using both a video camera and his mobile phone. Alex described what he saw the first time as the clearest encounter. It was not that tall, only as high as the grass, and a gray color with a big head. Didn't make a single sound, he said. Things escalated in early November when Alex claimed the creature actually entered his home. He and his mother sat together in his room while it, quote, moved through the house in 2 minutes. Then we heard a thud outside, like it was jumping off the veranda. Alex uploaded this footage to YouTube, got a lot of attention. The clip from the first October encounter was used in an independent documentary called Gone with the UFOs in 2011. See if you notice anything strange in this clip. Now let's slow things down and zoom in a bit. Some sort of alien-looking creature is lurking behind a headstone. The footage was allegedly filmed in 2005, but the video wasn't posted to YouTube until 2015. The person who recorded it claimed they hadn't actually noticed the creature until they watched the footage back years later. But no location, no name. Whoever filmed it remained anonymous. The video got reposted tons of times, and as you can imagine, reactions were all over the place. Some were pretty sure it was a hoax, but most people agreed that the footage was pretty creepy regardless, and there were also plenty of people who thought that it was genuine. Like one commenter who wrote, "I think this thing is demonic. I've heard of similar things being cited here in Oklahoma, and the Bible alludes to the demonic having an affinity with cemeteries." What are your thoughts on this video? Genuinely weird footage or a hoax? This is footage of the infamous Victor alien interview. This one gets talked about a lot amongst alien enthusiasts. I've talked about this clip on the channel before too, but the version you're looking at here is different from the one that I've shown before. This is the original format. It's brighter. You could see more of the creature. For those not in the know though, let me explain. The video's been floating around for decades now. It allegedly shows an interview taking place with an alien being at the S4 base near Area 51. It was supposedly leaked by a whistleblower who only ever identified himself as Victor. He made a copy of the top secret recording, and that footage ended up being featured in a 1997 documentary called Area 51, The Alien Interview, which also includes testimonies from people like Bob Lazar. Victor narrates over the footage throughout. though he never outright states that he worked at Area 51. Whether the footage is genuine or not, I don't know, but the story behind it is pretty interesting regardless. Victor's identity was also never confirmed. This video comes from 2015. Using his cell phone camera, a ranch owner in Nuevo Laredo was hearing strange noises in his backyard, grabbed his phone and started filming. Stepped outside and he ended up capturing some pretty creepy footage.
Las láminas. Se estremece, voltea hacia el techo.
The strange sounds continued. Now it sounded like it was coming from the roof. So he quickly panned over and saw this.
Tira la cámara. Ahí. Vea usted. ¿Qué es eso?
Crouching on the roof was some kind of strange humanoid creature. It was agile, extremely thin, with unusually long arms and legs, and a small head. It looked like your classic pale crawler or rake alien-like creature.
Hell no! Oh, hell no! What the is happening, bro? Hey, we out of this! We out of this! We out of this!
Alright, this is a crazy case. Thousands of witnesses, plenty of footage of people running away in a panic, but any security footage or personal recordings of the incident are nowhere to be found. Supposedly, they were confiscated, so the story goes. This is the very bizarre case of the Bayside Marketplace aliens. So on New Year's Day 2024, something happened at Bayside Marketplace in downtown Miami that still gets talked about today. Police were called out to the mall after reports of teenagers fighting and fireworks. Pretty standard New Year's chaos, but then witness accounts started coming in and it got pretty weird, really weird. Over 10 people claimed that they saw 3 massive humanoid figures walking out of a clothing store inside the mall, like 9 to 10 feet tall with long thin limbs and elongated torsos. They were also described as pure black, almost shadow-like. Others described them having a more reflective surface. There was a full-on panic with people rushing to get out of the mall, and the police response that night was massive. There are all these videos online of squad cars filling up the whole street, and people were like, really? I mean, some kids fighting warranted this response? Miami PD stuck to the disturbance explanation. They denied any evidence of aliens, but there were lots of witnesses who came forward describing the same basic thing. Whatever the case, it is definitely a weird story. Let's start with a bang, shall we? Good God. I'm not sure words are really gonna do justice here. That is just an absolute beast. And the power these things have to leap that height out of the water. I mean, great whites can jump 10 feet or 3 meters out of the water, but the highest jump on record was 15.5 feet, about 4.7 meters. Here are some animals in similar weight classes to great whites: adult giraffes, hippos, rhinos. Imagine seeing a freaking rhino or a giraffe leap 15 feet into the air. This is way too close for comfort. In 2023, a British diver ended up with this incredible footage during a cage diving trip in South Africa. His great white lunged within feet of his face. The guy who filmed it, Mark Graham, works as a videographer and shark dive guide. Graham said this day started off pretty good, with 4 different sharks circling the boat and getting curious about the people in the cage. He caught this getting seriously close on his GoPro. Great whites, for reference, are the largest predatory fish in the world, up to 20 feet and over 4,000 pounds. Graham said normally the sharks just cruise up slowly to check out the boat, but this was one of those rarer moments when you actually see one go full predator mode. That footage comes from a woman named Hillary Ray, who was cage diving in Mosul Bay, South Africa. She posted the footage to YouTube and wrote in the description, quote, "While shark cage diving, our cage was attacked by an 11.5-foot great white. To say this is horrifying footage would be an understatement, obviously. Not only does this thing look absolutely massive up close, you can hear the cage creaking as it gnaws on the bars." Ray said the damage afterward was pretty visible, too. The round buoy attached to the side of the cage was bent in half. Some of the lining of the outside blue barrier bar was bitten through as well. She also mentioned she shot it with a wide-angle lens. The shark was actually even closer than it looks in the footage. These are some spectacular images. Breathtaking in that they're terrifying and literally take your breath away. Captured off Guadalupe Island, Mexico in 2018, these photos show a massive 20-foot great white just dwarfing a research cage while it swims through a whole spool of mackerel. This thing weighed over 2 tons, was circling the cages repeatedly. The guy who took the photo is John Mayer, a water safety specialist from from California. He was out there for a shark ID project, took over 24 hours on the boat just to get out there, and spent 3 days documenting different great whites. They dove in the cages for 3 straight days, and John said he was averaging 8 hours underwater a day. He was about 40 feet from the other cage when this one showed up, and he said as far as he knew, it was one of the biggest female great whites anyone had seen that whole season. She was an absolute beauty and was as wide as a VW camper van, he said. She moved slowly, using very little effort, and seemed to be gliding more than swimming, an absolute Goliath, end quote. He also mentioned adult great whites go after elephant seals, which are like 5 times the size of a full-grown human. These researchers happened to capture the real-life jaws on camera, apparently. Seriously though, aside from the size, look at how this thing uses its jaws. It's crazy to see up close. I mean, imagine that clamping down on your leg. Or maybe don't. This footage was captured by a group called White Shark Ocean, who described themselves as a, quote, passionate group of shark enthusiasts, specialists, and professionals from various different backgrounds, who aim to create immersive shark experiences that give people a glimpse into the incredible lives beneath the surface. They also run cage diving excursions. This is a massive great white shark named Deep Blue, believed to be the largest great white ever captured on camera. She's basically the closest thing to a living megalodon. Back in 2019, off Hawaii, divers ran into her while she was feeding on a dead sperm whale carcass. A diver swimming beside her is actually named Ocean Ramsey, destined to be a diver. She said she watched as the shark went from the whale carcass over to her. She put her hand out, not really to touch her on purpose, just to, quote, maintain a small space so her girth could pass. But she did end up touching the shark as she swam past and defended it a bit, saying sharks sometimes want that contact. She pushed back on the mindless monster reputation great whites often get. Even still, she made it clear that people really shouldn't go looking to jump in the water with great whites or tiger sharks on purpose. Shark conservationist John Richardson from the Shark Trust in the UK said the sighting was exciting, and if she really is pregnant, it's an even bigger deal. He mentioned that great whites are rare in Hawaii, but that tracking data shows females migrate out of California to the Pacific in winter and tend to stay offshore rather than heading back like the males do. He also warned that, as cool as it is to see a friendly-looking encounter like this go viral, nobody should be touching or messing with a wild animal that size. Boats and divers need to stay hands-off with sharks in general. Not really a reminder I'm ever gonna need, but I don't know. Go on. This one is known as the Quebec frozen alien video. I'm surprised it doesn't get talked about more. So the story goes that in 1992, a group of snowmobilers discovered what appeared to be a small alien body in the snow near Riviere Rouge in Quebec, Canada. It was found in a wooded area close to a road. The men were cautious enough not to touch it. They used a stick and a wire to lift it up. When they came back the next day, the body was gone. They figured some kind of animal, maybe a coyote, had dragged it off. The person who originally filmed the photos, like filming them off a physical printout with the video camera, says a friend of a former roommate brought them to his apartment in Montreal that same year. He held on to the footage for over 15 years before doing anything with it, partly because a Quebec UFO researcher named Claude Macduff, who wrote several books on the subject, advised against going public. Macduff apparently told him it wasn't the first time he'd seen photos of this type of being, and that coming forward would just bring them unwanted attention. But in October 2008, the person finally uploaded it to YouTube under the title Real Alien Body in Quebec 1992. By January 2016, the original upload had over 430,000 views, with copies across the internet pushing it into the millions. One researcher from Omni Quebec looked into it. A journalist from a local paper near Riviere Rouge reached out. The original YouTube account that posted it no longer exists though, and 2 of the earliest accounts to reshare it have also taken it down. The identity of the snowmobilers has never been confirmed either, and the case remains unsolved. The footage you're looking at here was taken in Brazil. It was 2011 when 2 tourists were exploring the Amazon near Manaus. Lurking in the trees behind these kids is something that looks a lot like an alien being. Small and gray with big black eyes and a large bulbous head. And the location makes it a bit weirder too. The Manaus region has a long history of UFO sightings, strange lights in the sky, unknown crafts. People have been reporting this stuff for years. Some people think aliens might be drawn to the area because of how insanely rich it is in plant in animal life, which is kind of an interesting take. I mean, imagine if we could travel to other planets. We'd probably want to study the places with the most biodiversity too. There's also this. The Brazilian government ran a secret investigation in the late 70s called Operation Prato. Actually sent the army out to monitor the region after UFO reports started piling up. The whole thing was kept quiet for decades, but it was eventually declassified, and when it was, it confirmed the government had been actively investigating UFOs in that area. So sure, this video could be a hoax, but it's also possible something genuinely strange was captured on camera that day. In early 2024, a video out of Ilha do Mel, an island off the coast of southeast Brazil, started making the rounds on social media. It showed two tall humanoid figures standing on top of a hill, and people couldn't agree on what they were looking at. Locals were thrown off by a few things. For starters, the figures were estimated to be around 10 feet tall. See, the hilltop they were on is hard to get to, and the surrounding shrubs, which are dense enough in that area, barely come up to their knees. So here are some English translations of some of the things said in the video. It's too big to be a person. Look at the way it moves. It's really weird. Look at the size. And this isn't the only strange footage that's been captured on this island. This next video comes from the same place, only now we're focused on a figure coming down the hill rather than standing on top of it. The thing that stuck out to people most about this footage is how easily this figure is moving through the rugged terrain. According to commenters who've hiked in the area or just familiar with hiking in general, this thing seems to move way too smoothly. And thanks to some help from a Reddit user in the comments who translated some of the statements from the people behind the camera to English, these are some of the quotes. "Look, he's in the middle of the cliff. So camouflaged. It came down really quick. Look at its step, the size. It is really giant. Look at its tail." Now, I can't really make out a tail on camera, but maybe in person it was more clear. The footage isn't captured with the best quality phone, not awful either, but the thing is just so far away. I mean, people gotta start carrying high quality cameras with like zoom lenses when they're out in the wilderness, just in case of situations like this. You know, you could see Bigfoot, you could see an alien like this, I don't know. I'm only kinda joking. Carry zoom lenses, people. Back in 2015, a tourist named Jean Hernandez was outside a temple in downtown Bangkok when he heard people around him screaming and pointing at the ground. He looked down through a street grate and found himself staring at a massive lizard crawling through the sewer below. Hernandez got the whole thing on video and posted it to YouTube, writing in the description, "Yep, I was outside of a temple in downtown Bangkok and people were screaming and pointing to the sewer. There it was. I got the video to prove it." Locals told him it was a Komodo dragon, and he had no reason to doubt them. He also mentioned in a Reddit post that people there had told him Komodo dragons sometimes hunt in the city's sewers in packs, going after rats. Reddit predictably had their own thoughts. One user, just 'cause of it, was not buying the Komodo dragon identification, but he didn't think it was a mystical dragon or anything. He made a pretty reasonable case, saying Komodos can eat half a goat whole, so dining on rats in the sewers would not be enough. They're extremely dangerous animals and would be taken far more seriously than folks in the video seem to. Their best guess was that it was actually a water monitor, similar size to Komodos, but a lot more common in urban environments. Komodo dragon or water monitor though, the thing was enormous either way. Back in the summer of 1934, a Chinese newspaper ran a very bizarre story. On August 8th of that year, a villager followed a terrible smell coming from near the sea, and what they found at the end of it was a massive creature, long dead and mostly decomposed. The stench was apparently awful. The remains were discovered about 10 kilometers from the spot where, roughly a month earlier, locals had reported seeing a dragon-like creature fall from the sky. The bones were hauled to a nearby dock and crowds gathered around to see them for themselves. The bones were enormous, around 10 meters long in total with 28 vertebrae, and the skull had what appeared to be horns, each about a meter long. On August 12th, the Shenzhen Times ran the story, along with a photograph of the remains. Nobody ever officially identified what the creature was, but as I mentioned, there had been this crazy sighting of a large, winged creature before the bones were found. So let's dive into that too. So July 1934, Yankou City, China. For over 40 days straight, the weather had been absolutely relentless with constant wind and rain. Then, on the night of July 28th, people looked up and saw what was described as a massive creature in the sky. 2 horns, sharp claws, scales, And the next morning, the Shenzhen Times ran with the headline, "Dragon Causes Disaster." According to the report, the creature came crashing down out of the sky and plunged into the Liaodong Sea with enough force to overturn 3 fishing boats and damage harbor buildings. 9 people lost their lives. Headlines about a new species of ant hit in 2016, and at the time it was being compared to the dragons in Game of Thrones, because it was 2016. Remember that show was actually popular before it totally crapped the bed a few years later? Anyway, scientists at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology Graduate University were exploring the tropical rainforests of Papua New Guinea, Fiji, when they came across 2 brand new species of ants. And when they got a proper look at them, the nickname pretty much wrote itself. These things looked like dragons. So they just went ahead and named them after 2 of Khaleesi's, Drogon and Viserion. No fire breathing, unfortunately, but they've got these menacing spikes running down their backs. Some researchers think they're to scare off predators. Lead researcher Eli Cernat had a different take though, saying the muscles in the spines may help them hold up their massive heads. Makes sense, given they have big, powerful jaws for breaking down food. This next clip comes from a trail cam in the Appalachian Mountains. It was posted by Elizabeth Maynard, 98, who caught something pretty unsettling moving across her property, and it was not just 1, 2. At first, when these things pass by the camera, it's really hard to tell what you're looking at, but you can clearly see that they're moving on all 4s. They go out of frame, then loop back around and come into view again, and this time they're upright, walking on 2 legs. It looks almost human at that point, but still not quite. They're extremely thin, with glowing eyes and no visible hair. The closest comparison people keep making is something like a stereotypical alien. The movement is also really off, with these small, awkward steps. They're not really used to standing or walking like that. In the comments, people were throwing in all kinds of theories, from rakes, skinwalkers, wendigos, but what do you guys think of this footage? Leave your thoughts down below. This video has been floating around online for years. These guys are hanging around a campfire, casually talking, completely unaware that something terrifying is lurking in the shadows around their camp. For a brief moment, it shows up in the background of the video. And now we'll look at it zoomed in and brightened up a bit. The thing is only on screen for a brief moment. The legs are the most obvious part, but if you look closely enough, you can also make out the head and arms. Where exactly this footage was shot is still unknown. The creature ended up being dubbed the campfire creature. Some also think this is documented evidence of the new Louisiana swamp monster, a humanoid figure described as kind of skinwalker or alien-like. You'll know it from this infamous image here, captured on a deer hunter's camera in Berwick, Louisiana. And once again, we're in Brazil for this one. Lots of Brazil on this list. This video was uploaded to YouTube a couple years ago, showing what appears to be a UFO hovering over Curitiba, Brazil. It was posted to a channel that translates to Unknown Zone. The person who filmed it said they never really believed in UFOs before this. They spotted the object while driving on a Sunday, July 21st, 2024, and actually chased it as it moved in a straight line above the street. When the road ended at a railway line, they got out of the car to keep watching it. In the video's description, they wrote that at first they thought it was a drone, but there were no propellers. Then they thought maybe it was a balloon, but it was moving in a perfectly straight trajectory. And then something that looked like landing gear apparently appeared on it. What do you all think of this one? As always, let us know down below. This one comes out of Cathedral City, California in July 2018. A night security guard named Douglas Benfield, 48 at the time, was sitting at his monitor when things suddenly felt strange. He couldn't really explain it, he just got this odd feeling in the pit of his stomach. And that's when something caught his eye on one of the screens. A super bright object slowly rose from the construction site that he was guarding, hovering for a moment, and then shot off at insane speed. He rewound the footage immediately, and then again. He just couldn't make sense of it. He'd watched the footage over and over. He then did what most of us would do. He recorded the screen with his phone and texted the footage to his son. His son's response was simply, "WTF is that?" After that, Douglas didn't really show it to anyone. Life kind of got in the way, but when he came back across the clip later, he knew he couldn't just sit on it, so he shared it online, and it ended up on several articles and news sites. Pretty crazy footage. And here's Ocean Ramsey again. This time, she's inches away from diving right into a tiger shark's mouth. I mean, if she'd hopped in the water just moments earlier, she could have been its next meal. Ramsey spotted the shark bumping into some floating plastic pollution and decided to dive in to help. Now, right as she was about to drop into the water though, she took one last look down to see the shark with its mouth wide open, waiting for her to drop down. She yanked herself back into the boat as the shark popped out of the water, going for her flippers. Instead of freaking out about it though, she actually laughed it off. Turns out this was actually a shark she knows well, nicknamed Queen Nikki. She posted the clip to Instagram and maintained that Nikki, who she swam with for years, wasn't actually trying to attack her. Apparently. I couldn't see very far, and I don't think she could either, so I think Nikki was reacting more from my initial noise entering in shadow. She also called what the shark did a spy hop, basically when they poke their head out of the water just to check out what's going on around them when visibility isn't great. Now, look at this monster. No, this is not an AI-generated image. This huge tiger shark was caught in Australia back in 2015. It went after a hammerhead that was hooked on someone's line, probably thinking that it had an easy meal. Instead, it ended up getting caught itself by a commercial fisherman. It was 4 meters long, just over 13 feet. There have been a number of shark attacks on surfers in the area just months before. The fisherman who caught it, Joel Merchant, said he'd seen more tiger sharks in the previous 12 months than the whole decade before that. He said he was catching his weekly limit of 500 kilograms of shark within just a few days. It wasn't uncommon for him to pull up half-eaten juvenile sharks. In his words, quote, "Every second day or so, I'll pull up half a shark because another shark has had a go at my catch." Now, this massive beast is known as Contender, said to be the largest known male great white shark in the Atlantic Ocean. It got tagged back in January 2025 by a non-profit marine research organization called OCEARCH. It weighs 1,653 pounds and is almost 14 feet long. I've been keeping tabs on him through their Global Shark Tracker app, which is free. You can actually pull it up right now and see where this thing's hanging out. Here's how the tags actually work. They're stuck on the shark's dorsal fin, and there's these 2 copper contacts that complete a circuit when it's underwater. When the shark comes up to the surface, that circuit breaks, and the tag fires off a location signal. Dr. Robert Huter, who's OCEARCH's chief scientist, said, "If the shark stays at the surface for 10, 20, 30 seconds, we'll get a good fix on where the shark is." This kind of tracking helps scientists figure out migration routes, feeding patterns, how these sharks move seasonally along coastlines people actually use, helps with conservation, helps beach communities know when something big might be cruising around. And it's not that sharks are suddenly hunting people down near beaches, it's more that human activity keeps shifting things so people and these sharks end up crossing paths more. Well, this looks like a dragon if I've ever seen one. Now, this footage is obviously pretty fantastical. It'd be easy to write off as AI, but the video's been floating around since 2016. Doesn't mean I'm saying it's 100% genuine, but it's not just some AI-generated slop, at least. The clip was uploaded by a YouTuber called Apex TV and runs for about 5 minutes. It claims to show a large winged creature soaring over a mountain range somewhere near the border between China and Laos. The exact location was never specified, which, depending on who you ask, is either suspicious or just adds to the mystery. In China, dragons are not just movie monsters though. They're deeply woven into the country's folklore and culture, seen as powerful, majestic beings. So for a lot of Chinese viewers, the video did have a certain weight to it. There's also some conversation at the time that this could be footage of a living pterodactyl. There is a theory that pterosaurs, thought to have died out 66 million years ago, might not be as gone as we think. This footage also isn't AI generated. First hit the internet back in 2015. Clearly this is not a regular looking bird though. This thing looks like a pterodactyl. And where was this filmed? Some rural jungle in Brazil? No, Boise, Idaho. Wasn't that your first guess? To be fair, Idaho is no stranger to legends. It's Bigfoot country. Locals will also tell you about Charlie, the mythical monster said to lurk in the depths of Piatt Lake. But this video made the rounds online at the time. The clip racked up millions of views. It appears to show a pterosaur-looking creature flying over Boise in broad daylight. As you'd expect, the the internet had thoughts. A lot of people wrote it off as CGI, but not everyone was laughing it off. Plenty of viewers came forward claiming that they'd seen something similar with their own eyes. One person wrote that their 12-year-old son and themselves spotted a nearly identical creature over their home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania around 13 years before, and that they both looked at each other and said, "That's a dragon." Another account came from a man who said he encountered something over the Salmon River in Oregon back in 1991. He described a creature with a wingspan somewhere between 15 and 20 feet gliding overhead, around 30 feet above him. It glided silently, and I only lost sight of it when it veered right in a bend over the river approximately 200 feet ahead. My wife refused to believe my story until now, 30 years later, he wrote. The Bristol Zoo Project, a wildlife conservation park in England, posted something on Facebook on October 22nd, 2024 that got a lot of people talking. Their trail cameras had picked up something that had the conservation team, in their own words, a little stumped. The footage was captured on a night vision camera near the park's Bearwood habitat, home to bears of course, wolves, wolverines, and lynx. And what showed up alongside a perfectly ordinary deer was something nobody could quite put a name to. The creature appeared to have 4 legs, what looked like a horn or horns coming out of its head, and what seemed to be wings. The conservation team, who spent plenty of time watching these cameras, said it was like nothing they'd seen before. The zoo's public engagement manager, Rosie Sims, said, "Scotland has a Loch Ness Monster and Cornwall has the Beast of Bodmin Moor. We have discovered a similar mythical here in Bristol, perhaps?" They shared the image on Facebook and asked followers to weigh in. Most people landed on the fairly sensible explanation that it was probably a deer caught at a weird angle, but not everyone agreed. Like one commenter who wrote, "It's obviously a baby unicorn." This footage was uploaded in May of 2016. Nobody really knows where it was filmed. What we do know is that a young guy named Pito uploaded it. It was a really overcast, foggy day, and then something enormous showed up in the clouds. Pito just froze on the spot when he saw it, but managed to snap out of it and whip out his phone to start filming. First appears moving behind a tree, and even from a distance you can get a sense of just how big this thing is. Then it swings back around and you get a proper look at it. Wings stretched out wide, gliding through the dark, foggy sky. What do we think? Are we just writing this off as CGI? Well, some commenters say this could also be a large bat. The giant golden-crowned flying fox is what's known as a megabat. They live in the Philippines. They have a wingspan of 4.9 to 5.6 feet. Terrifying. What did this security camera capture running through this person's backyard? There are some interesting comments, everything from a chicken to a fox, but the most interesting comments, dinosaur. And yeah, I could see it. Looks like one of those baby raptors from Jurassic Park. The streamlined body position while also seeming to run on 2 legs, the long thick tail, pretty strange. The video was also captured in Florida, so some wondered if it could be a baby alligator, but it seemed to be moving a little too fast for that, and again, looks like it's running on 2 legs. What do you think about this one though? Share your thoughts down below.